up, everyone? It's Shanita here with Jewels in the Making, a channel geared toward faith, lifestyle, and development. Today's topic is more than just a pretty face, but a solution to the problem. All right, so the reason why I titled this video More Than Just a Pretty Face is because I'm going to be coming from the book of Esther. And in the book of Esther, it does talk about how she had a lovely figure, how she was beautiful. And more importantly, though, what I grasp is that Esther was the solution to a problem that was occurring with her people who were Jewish. So Esther was a minority in a Persian country. Her and her uncle Mordecai, or cousin Mordecai, their lineage were in exile from Nebuchadnezzar. And so you had King Darius and King Cyrus who freed Mordecai and Esther's ancestors from being in bondage to Nebuchadnezzar. So it's a lot of history beyond that, but that's not the premise of this video. But I just wanted to give you context that she and her people were minorities in this country, and she was the solution to saving them. So that's why I named the video what I named it. Also, I want to start off with the simple fact that Jesus teaches us how to be a solution to a problem that we may see in our households, in our schools, in our government, and in our communities. And we as Christians have to be the voice and have to be the manpower and foot power to change things that are not quite what they should be. And so I'm going to start off in the book of Matthew, and this is Matthew 14, verse 13. This is right after John the Baptist, which is Elizabeth's son and the cousin to Jesus, has been beheaded. And so Jesus is a little sad. And I love the fact that Jesus, because he's 100% God and 100% man, he feels like we feel. And so he was in the mourning process, and so he goes away. And it says, when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said, and he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks. He gave thanks, broke the loaves, then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. All right, so if you hear noise in the background, there are kids outside. There is the garbage truck outside. So there's a lot going on, but that's not going to stop me from telling you guys what I've learned in my time of devotion and study. And the first thing that I want to start off with is two things actually, but the first thing is how Jesus was mourning and how he was sad, and he did not allow that to stop him from still doing the will of God, which is to feed those, which is to take care of the hungry. He didn't stop. He kept on and he fed them, right? So that's the first thing. As Christians, we can't allow our sadness or our sorrows to weigh us down to the point that we don't do the mission that God has called us to do. We should never allow ourselves to get in the way of the call. And that's what Jesus displayed. The second thing is that he turned to the disciples. They came to him like, they're going to be hungry. We need to be wrapping this up because they're going to be hungry. He's like, wait a minute. You feed them. They're like, with what? So then they find these, the bread and the fish, and he multiplies it. And I think that teaches us as Christians something too, is that we may not see what we can use to change our environment, but God has already placed it in us what we need to give in order to change the environment that we have. It's already in our presence. We just have to have faith enough to access it and make the difference. And so many of us will not go through with what God has called us to do because we're like, wait, I don't have anything. What do I have to give? And he says, look a bit deeper. Look around you. You do have something that you can tap into and to give to other people. It may not be as big as what you think it should be. And that was the disciples' issues. They were thinking that it should be this large spread of food in order to supply the need, to supply food to the need. And he's just like, we can use this little and make it larger. And as Christians, we have to use the little that we do have to make a huge impact on this world. So now I'm going to get started with the book of Esther. And I like Esther because in Esther 3 and 4, there's a decree given out by Haman. Haman is the villain of the book, and he does not like the Jews because Mordecai does not bow down to him every time that he walks past. And so he gets angry, like, how dare you not bow down to me? Like, I'm Haman, you know? And Mordecai was just like, I'm not bowing down to this dude. Like, I serve a God. Like, I'm not going to worship any other gods. And he learned that because his ancestors, people before him, were worshiping false gods and doing all of those things, and they were put into exile due to that. So he was not going to worship any false gods or any people on this earth. And so that makes Haman very angry. But then Mordecai finds out that Haman has a bounty on all Jews. So he's just like, I want all Jews annihilated, and I'm going to give you money if you kill these Jews. And so he goes to Esther and he says, you know, this is going to happen to our people. And don't be mistaken, even though they don't know you're a Jew, you are a Jew, honey. And so if it happens to us, it can also happen to you where you are killed. And so Esther was afraid because she knew that she can be killed if the king hadn't summoned her. So she couldn't just approach the king and say, hey, this is going on. He had to call for her. So just by the mere fact that she wasn't following by the rules, she could be killed. And so she says, you know, if I perish, I perish, but I have to save my people. I'm in the king's house. I'm in a position where I can help my people. I'm not going to forget about my people just because I've made it to this point in my life. And that speaks volumes about her character, that she's more than just a pretty face, but that she has a godly character. And so she goes on and she becomes brave. And in Esther 4:10-11, she goes to the king without being summoned. And she just lets him know, like, hey, I want to have this dinner. And then after this dinner, please bring Haman in. And then after the dinner, the plot was exposed about Haman. And I'm kind of like summing it all up. You have to go back and read it for yourself. But basically, the plot is revealed that Haman, one of the king's right-hand men, is going to kill the Jews. And so the king shows favor. He remembers Mordecai because some chapters before, Mordecai had revealed a plan to the king that some of his own men were going to kill him. So he was like, Mordecai's a good man. And I love this woman, Esther. I love her. I think yes, he was enthralled by her beauty, but I think more importantly, she possessed that light of God. She possessed that favor, which made him more attracted to her. It wasn't just that she was beautiful, yes, but she was beautiful because of what was inside of her, what she possessed. And I don't know about you, but I want to be that type of woman who possess godliness, and that becomes the beauty on the outside. Not just my hair or my makeup or my clothes or any of those things. They're just an added bonus. They're not bad, but that's not what I'm grounded or rooted in. I want to have the character of God so that I can, if I see an issue, I can be the problem solver to that issue if that's where God has called me to. And so this book about Esther just shows how caring and loving she was, and how she was able to keep people from killing her people, from annihilating her people. And God placed her in that position to do so. And so I charge everyone, wherever God has called you to, answer the call so that you can be a difference in this dark world, in today's society, in 2020. You can be the voice of reason. You can be the voice of light. You can be the voice of hope. And so that's all. I can go on and on about this book, but I really want you guys yourselves to go and read the book of Esther, because I kind of summed it up very quickly. But I want you to go and take some time and see where God is calling you. And remember, guys, we're all kings and queens of the Most High, Jesus Christ. Be blessed.